We're headed out to Verdant Acres Farm, which is located in the middle of the valley north of Brownsburg, Virginia, which was one of the old towns that was half a day's ride by wagon or 2 hours ride by wagon. So there's a whole string of little towns going down the valley. Stanton and Lexington were two of them, but now there were others, Middlebrook. So they're on the old valley road, and they have a very old farmhouse and about 40 acres. How did you get here?
Who are you?
Who are you? No, I guess what brought you to Verdant Acres Farm? Or maybe introduce yourself first.
You go first. Ladies first.
I'm Mary Pedersen, the female half, and this is...
I'm John. So my journey and her journey are two totally different journeys. I was in healthcare architecture. I was working in Northern Virginia and started to learn about food as I was starting a new family, and we came to it from a health perspective. So we were having some health issues that we were trying to figure out, and I started learning about just whole foods. Up until that point, we ate at restaurants almost exclusively. And then started learning about whole foods, cooking at home, and the more research I did about whole foods and where our food came from, just got me more and more intrigued about farming and food and where it came from and how it was grown and produced. And I came across a farm called Polyface during those years of exploring food, and I left healthcare architecture for 4 months and did an internship at Polyface, and took the sabbatical from architecture. I had a job secured if it all failed, and I didn't like it. But they gave me 4 months to go learn about food, and then went to Polyface, got into that internship program, and haven't turned back. Did 4 months on their farm, and then managed a farm for 5 years in total. One of their farms was 280 acres. So I went from 4 months experience to full-time farming with 250 head of cattle, a couple hundred pigs, 1,800 layers.
That was
6,000 broilers.
White Oak Farm?
No,
that's
no.
Polyface.
So that was at Polyface.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
okay.
for Polyface at Polyface. So they have a bunch of satellite farms. So there's
Okay.
the main farm. It's only 160 acres or something of pasture, and then so a majority of what they produce is produced on satellite rental farms in the county or
that are
couple
under
counties.
their management practices.
Yeah, so they'll take an intern that usually turns into an apprentice for a year, and then that apprentice will then become a farm manager or contractor. So I skipped the apprenticeship part and just went from intern to contract farmer. And then Mary and I met at but that's what happened when we met.
Go ahead, you can talk about White Oak.
Mary and I met at White Oak Pastures. So 3 years into Polyface, I took a trip to Florida to see my dad. And on my way from here to Florida, there's another farm called White Oak Pastures. And I went by there and did a farm tour with Will Harris. And he recruited me to stay on as their hog manager. So I did the farm tour, and then he took me around, showed me my house, showed me my pigs, and said, this is what I got to offer for you. And it was off season here, and I had to make a decision whether we were gonna stay on in Virginia for another year or go down to White Oak and manage pigs. and they had just gotten an Iberian hog from Spain, which was really intriguing. It was the first time that the Spanish had ever exported Iberian hogs off of out of Spain. They
Wow.
were considered a national treasure and were banned from export.
Huh.
And they opened it up for a few months. A couple of the pig farmers in Spain came over here, searched some farms, found White Oak, said this is where we want to partner with, and sent 12 gilts and 4 boars. And so they started with the 12 and the 4. I came on right at the perfect time and started the breeding program down there. And then grew there. They have an American Heritage hog operation too, and kind of grew that from 1 or 2 pigs a week to, I think when I left it was 12 to 15 pigs a week we were processing. And while I was down there, Mary and I worked closely together. She was in the garden, and I needed food for my pigs, so I was always hitting her up in the garden to get her
For
her
wasted
vegetables,
produce, yeah.
trying to keep my feed costs down.
Yeah.
So she would take all of their extra vegetables, put them in buckets, and then I'd come by once a week, pick up veggies. And then she got put in charge of the rabbits. She didn't have any rabbit experience. I had a little bit from being at Polyface. So Mr. Harris told Mary that she could do whatever she wanted as long as John Pedersen approved it. So then she was at my mercy to talk to me about rabbits.
And she didn't listen very well.
And she didn't listen. No. So I brought her up to Polyface to meet Daniel about his rabbit breeding program. And on the trip up here, I convinced her that Virginia was better than anywhere she had been before in her life, and that she needed to come back and farm in Virginia. So brought her back here at the end of that season in White Oak, farmed 2 more years at Polyface, started to get an itch to do our own thing, and started looking for property for about a year until we found Verdant Acres. And it was abandoned for 7 years. Had been under continuous grazing for
Oh, yeah.
who knows how long, 100 years probably. They did grow cereal grains here for some time. There's some irrigation drains that you've seen where they'd irrigate, and they did some cereal crop production up on top of a hill. The rest was all continuous graze for cattle. So the pastures were pretty worn out, lots of exposed rock, depleted topsoil, but it had opportunity. Had a creek running through it, or it has a creek running through it.
So let's see. You came here. You had an old house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of know what got you started in what I call regenerative agriculture. What do you call it?
Regenerative agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regenerating.
Regenerating the soil, really. I mean, I think we're probably more soil farmers than anything. We care deeply about the animals that we raise and the vegetables we raise. But we also realize that it's all based on the quality of the soil. We can't raise quality animals or give them the life they need and the respect they need, or the vegetables, if we're not taking care of the soil. So we're soil regenerative farmers, I guess.
Yeah.
That's our focus, is regenerating soil, building topsoil, putting back what poor farming practices took away.